If countries don't trust each other's currencies, global trade has a huge math problem. In the last video, we talked about a shift towards a multipolar currency world, not one dominant currency, but several. And here is the problem with that. You see, historically, international trade has always forced one country to hold another country's money. And that creates leverage. And leverage, it's pretty handy when it comes to politics. So countries have been trying to reduce dependency on each other's currencies for years now. This is what economists call local currency settlement. So China likes to settle trade in Yuan. The EU prefers euros, and commodity producers want pricing power. But they still need a connector, right? Because if, let's say, Brazil trades with India and neither wants dollars, well, one of them still has to take a currency risk. And historically, that role has defaulted to the US dollar. But in a multipolar world, no country wants the other country's monetary policy exported into their own country. So the system needs and is craving something different. Not a new boss or dominant currency, but more of a no boss or neutral settlement layer. The IMF has already explored this idea conceptually with synthetic international units like the SDRs. And central banks are actively testing multi-currency settlement platforms where assets move between jurisdictions without relying on one national currency as an intermediary. So now I want you to zoom out, and for a moment I want you to think strategically. If the US tried to force dollar dominance forever, countries would build systems to bypass it. That's pretty straightforward. But if the US supports infrastructure that connects currencies instead of competing with them, well, maybe that creates a level playing field. It stays central to the network without needing every transaction to be in dollars that way. So not the ruler of the system, but more so the architect of it. And that is a real geopolitical game. So the future monetary advantage may not belong to the country whose currency wins, but to the country whose rails everyone uses. So the real question then becomes, in a world of many currencies, what asset could function as the bridge between all of them? Let me know your answer in the comments.
And I believe that we will all eventually, and probably very much sooner than a lot of people understand or think, we will be all at a level playing field. Because that's the only way it's fair. That's the only way that you can fairly compete in trade and other things.
Countries are like, okay, well, the US dollar can't hold on forever, but it's not going to be our currency because no one's going to want to repeat the US dollar. Nobody but the EU wants the EU to replace the dollar, right? Nobody but Russia wants the ruble to replace the dollar. Nobody but China wants the yuan to replace the dollar. So maybe they could settle on a currency that nobody could control rather than one controlled by their most powerful geopolitical rival. So if you want a success scenario, that's the one that I think is the most likely.
But the money question is, how do you get everybody to agree?
Well, I mean, they might agree if the alternative is that their geopolitical rivals force some new replacement for the dollar that's not, if they just replace, the old boss with a new boss. If the choice is no boss, if that happens to make a bunch of cryptocurrency people rich, I don't think they're going to see that as too much of a minus.